All right, good morning. Look at, they replaced the bulb. Do you see how like it's all crisp and clear and bright? It's the little things, right? I'm like so excited about that. I've been asking them to replace that bulb for almost a year. Like it looks so nice, right? But anyway, my little excitement for the day. Is everyone hanging in there? Doing okay? This time tomorrow, I'll be at the airport. That's crazy, right? I know. I'm like, that's why I haven't flown on a plane. I'm actually most nervous about flying just because like I don't want to get sick on the plane, right? Oh, I'm gonna wear my mask like the whole time. I'm like my kids, I'm like, you're wearing your mask. They're like, but we don't wear them anymore. I'm like, I don't care. You're wearing it. They're gonna hate me tomorrow. But I don't want to get sick. I don't care if I get sick on the way home, but I don't want to get sick on the way there. No, not anymore. Right. So you don't have to take a COVID test. You don't have to show vaccination. You don't have to wear masks. Nothing anymore. Last one we went on, you had to do all that. So we went to Catalina and Ensenada, which was nice. We didn't have to go very far. It was so convenient. So, yeah. Did all of you see our tornado warning last night? Oh my gosh, I was like, I took like 15 screenshots of that. I was like, I have never seen that here ever. I mean, it was up near like Oxnard area, but there was a little bit of thunder and lightning. My kids were terrified. They're like, what's going on? What's that sound? I'm like, it's just thunder. It's okay. And so it was wild. I was kind of hoping it would get like a little more severe for a minute. I was a little excited and then it was gone, but like, let's do this. So anyway, we've had crazy weather. It's supposed to keep raining today. And then we're supposed to have like a good week of no rain. So we'll see what happens. And then I wrote this up here and just to remind you one more time. So I'm going to talk about something today. But what we'll do today, we'll finish chapter 10. So we'll get through the rest of this, talking about these two disorders up here. We'll do a little case study and kind of wrap that up. And then on Monday, obviously I won't be here, but you will have exam number 2. So it'll open up at 12:01 a.m. and it'll be open all day until 11:59 p.m. at night. So make sure you take that on Canvas. Obviously, there won't be any like in-person class, but make sure you do that on that day. You can use your notes, you can use your book. Please prepare with the study guide, right? That's going to help you just like with the last test. So make sure that you go through and do prepare and study a little bit so you do well. It should be very straightforward and easy. Again, a lot of you did beautifully on that first test. I would expect the same here. So good luck on that. I hope it goes really smoothly, but that will be on Monday. And then on Wednesday, we won't have class. And these have been planned, obviously, for some time. I will be giving you a little homework assignment. It won't take you maybe more than 20 minutes to do, but that will be in substitution of our class since we won't have one. So what will happen is that will pop up on Wednesday. It'll be a little assignment related to the chapter on sex and gender disorders, which we won't cover in here. And I don't normally cover it because it's a little beyond the scope of our class, but it'll kind of prompt you to look over the slides and look through the chapter a little bit. And that will be due that night on Canvas. And I did set like an away email. So again, if you email me after like this Saturday morning, I won't get it until I come back, but please email me if you run into issues with any of that, and I will respond to it as soon as I'm back here in the country. Okay. Are there any questions or anything else about any of that, anything at all? I like set multiple announcements to go out to remind you of all of that. But again, I won't be here. So I'm sorry. I feel bad that I won't be here on the test day to like answer emails, but hopefully everything will go smoothly and it'll be okay. Yeah. It's going to be due by the end of the day. So by 11:59 p.m. that night. That way you have that flexibility to do it anytime on that Wednesday. And then after that, it's spring break. You get a whole week to kind of recuperate and get ready for our last little push of the semester when we come back. So yeah, it'll be about 2 weeks before I see you. I'll think of you. I'll eat something for each one of you because I'm considerate like that. Like 1 hamburger per student. I can handle that. I think I have a week on the boat. I could do that. Maybe how about a half a hamburger per student and then 1 piece of cake for each of you. I can handle that. There's this little thing called the chocolate melting cake. I'm already dreaming. I already know they have on every cruise, and you can order as many desserts as you want, which is so much fun. I was like, I'll take one of each. I plan to come back like 10 times. Yeah. Yep. So this is next week, and then it's the week after. Right. My kids, it's next week. Just so annoying. It's not the same for me and for them. But this is next week, and then the week after, which is the 4th and the 3rd and the 5th for us for our classes at spring break. Okay. Right. Anything else? Anything else here before we jump back to this with our so bright slides? Seriously, I'm so excited about that. And it's like too big though, but I'll take it. Okay, I'll check in with you one more time at the end if you think of anything. But we talked about the categories of drugs really quickly. Again, remember that there are 3 depressants, things that slow you down, stimulants, things that speed you up, and hallucinogens, things that kind of manipulate or distort your visual and auditory perception. What we are most interested in for us is there's really only one huge disorder, but then there's also a smaller one that we'll talk about. Substance use disorders is what we're going to focus on. But I want to make one distinction. There's when you're intoxicated, if we have a substance intoxication, if you take a drug and you become intoxicated, that's a temporary reaction to a drug. Okay, so if you drink a cup of coffee and you're really up and stimulated, right? If you use any kind of drug that we talked about last time, you can become intoxicated where you have behavioral and psychological changes that develop. Like I was sharing with you, even on like NyQuil, I can become intoxicated on NyQuil, right? So you can have a temporary reaction to a substance that isn't necessarily problematic. Now it can escalate to being problematic, but most people can use a substance every now and then, depending on the substance, and be okay, not develop like addiction or tolerance or withdrawal. But for a lot of people, they can start to develop a problematic pattern with drug use if it's kind of repetitive, if it's something that you're doing repeatedly. And we have one main disorder that we call substance use disorder. And so what we would do is we would diagnose you with the substance use disorder, and then we specify the substance that you're abusing. So we could say substance use disorder, alcohol, substance use disorder, cocaine, right? Or multiple substances, depending on what you're doing. And interestingly, if we look back at the DSM-4, so we're in the DSM-5 right now, technically the text revision, but it's a very, very small revision. In the DSM-4, there were 2 different diagnoses. You could have substance abuse, or you could have substance dependence. And it was super problematic because a lot of people had both. And so you'd end up with both diagnoses. Now we just have this one. So we've kind of combined them together into one main disorder. And there's a bunch of different criteria that you have to meet in order to have this. I have a little video that kind of introduces it. I'll play it for you, and then we could talk about the criteria. But again, what you would do is but I think it's a really nice overview of the symptoms, like if we ignored his personality just a little bit. But I think it has a good little bit of an overview. And we'll talk here about the different symptoms that you have to have. There's a whole ton of these, right? And so when we talk about substance use disorder, you have to have 2 or more symptoms. And oftentimes people have way more than that, more than 2, over the span of 12 months or more. So this is not a short-term thing. This is not just a temporary intoxication. This is a long-term pattern that people are displaying, right? 12 months. So over at least a year, you're showing a variety of different symptoms. So let's talk about some of the symptoms that you might have to have. You take more amounts than you intended. So as I mentioned, you take more than intended. I'm going to try and just abbreviate these a little bit. So you might only intend, as he said, to have 1 drink or 2 drinks at a party, but you end up getting absolutely drunk, right? So you take more of the substance than you intended to, right? You're kind of using larger and larger amounts of it over time. You have unsuccessful efforts to reduce the substance use. So you want to cut down, but you're unsuccessful in doing so. You could say unsuccessful. Absolutely, combine 3 words there. Unsuccessful attempts at cutting down. So you want to stop using the substance. You want to use less of it, but you tend to be unsuccessful at doing so. You might have all the intentions in the world of stopping, but when you try to stop, you don't tend to be successful. You spend a lot of time revolving around the drug. Time using it, time acquiring it, time thinking about it, being around it. It takes up a lot of your time and energy. You're just using a lot of your time trying to either obtain it or use it or thinking about it or whatnot, right? So it's kind of consuming in a way. It affects your ability to fulfill your obligations. We could say a failure to fulfill obligations. You're not able to get to school because you're so hungover, right? Or you're missing work because you're using a substance, right? It's affecting your life in some way. It's making it hard for you to do the things that are expected of you because of your use of this substance. There are a few more that we could put up here. Let's see, you continue to use it despite problems. Despite the fact that maybe it's cost you your job, or it's cost you a relationship, or you're failing a class, you continue to use it, right? And it kind of piggybacks up here. You know, you're trying to cut down, but you're not able to. You just keep using this substance despite all the problems that it's causing you. It makes you stop activities that you've enjoyed. So we could say you stop doing activities that you enjoy. Maybe you've always enjoyed doing certain things, but you can't seem to do them anymore because you're so busy using the drug, or you're on the drug and it interferes with it in some way. What else? There's a few things. It puts you in situations that are physically hazardous. Okay. So driving drunk, right, would be a good example of that, right? So it's putting you in situations that are either physically hazardous or maybe even legally so, right? You might get in trouble with the law because of this. Other things that you see are tolerance and withdrawal. So I have those up here on the slide. And then we can also add craving. So craving the drug, you think about it, you want it, right? How can I get it, right? It's always on your mind. Your body becomes used to it. And so when we talk about things like tolerance and withdrawal, tolerance is really common, right? Even with something as mild as like caffeine, if you drink a cup of coffee every morning, eventually that cup of coffee doesn't do a whole lot for you. And you need a bigger cup of coffee or a second cup of coffee. I worked at Starbucks when I was in graduate school, and I felt like a drug pusher because you could always see like the progression. Like people would order like a grande drink, and then like a few months later, it was like a venti drink, and then it was a triple venti, and then a quad venti, right? And then it was before they had the 30 when I worked there. But they would just slowly move up, right? You needed more and more, or they'd come back for a second cup when they never did before. That happens a lot with substances. Your body gets used to them. And so you need more and more and more of it to get the same effect. And then when you don't take it, you feel awful, right? Like if you don't have that cup of coffee in the morning, you're cranky and you're tired and you're off, right? If you don't have that drug that helps you sleep every night, right? You might not be able to sleep and you get a headache and you feel awful. Some drugs can actually be fatal in the withdrawal symptoms if you do them quick enough. Like if you drink a ridiculous amount of alcohol and stop cold turkey, it can kill you, right? Other drugs are just difficult, like heroin, one of the most difficult ones to withdraw from, nicotine as well. These make it really unpleasant, and they reinforce this stuff, right? Because you feel so lousy, you go back to using the drug to feel better. Yeah. Yeah, right. Those two. Mm-hmm. Yeah, alcohol, surprisingly, like we tend to think of alcohol as not being that dangerous, but if you're drinking a lot of it and you stop taking it, it can be fatal, right? It can absolutely wreak havoc on your system. And then some of the other ones are hard, but you don't necessarily need medical supervision. So you have to have at least two of these, but a lot of people show most of them, right? It can show a wide variety of them. People end up in jail or end up getting in legal difficulties, or losing things that are important to them because of the use of the substance. Now, we've talked about disorders all semester. And remember that one of the criteria for every disorder is it cannot be due to the use of a substance or a general medical condition. So you can't have depression because you're using a substance, right? Though a lot of people might use a substance because they have depression, you have to figure out which comes first. Here's where we start to get at the, like, if you're having a problem because of a drug, this is where it will fall, right? And so we're talking about these substance use disorders, but you can also have something called a substance-induced disorder. Let's say you develop anxiety because you've been abusing cocaine. That's a very common thing that happens. People are using cocaine, which is an extreme stimulant, and it causes them to develop panic attacks or anxiety. Or maybe you've been abusing marijuana and it causes depression, right? If somebody has a problem because of the use of a substance, we would say that you have substance-induced anxiety, substance-induced depression, substance-induced schizophrenia is one that we sometimes hear of, where people use a drug and it causes them to develop schizophrenia when they didn't have it before. Not the most common, but it can definitely happen. We'll talk about that a little more in that unit. But this is the other way that this can present. So this substance use disorder is like the main one, but sometimes people can develop another issue, another mental illness as the result of using the drug. Are there any like questions or thoughts, stories, comments, anything with these? Anything here at all? Makes sense? Feel pretty clear? I have a little case study, like I said, that we'll do in a couple of minutes, but these are very, very common, right? A lot of people struggle with substances, though the criteria of a year sometimes helps with lowering the amount of diagnoses with this. That's a long time, right? So you have to have this problem like more often than not for the course of a year.
Psychosis.
Yeah.
That's a substance-induced disorder.
Yeah.
But what if we never come out of psychosis? Does that turn into a substance into schizophrenia?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and sometimes that happens, which is so sad, right? And with schizophrenia specifically, which is a psychosis, that's one that we see the most frequently. And so it would be forever, it might be a substance-induced schizophrenia. And after a time, it might just be viewed as schizophrenia, but that would be the formal diagnosis because the substance caused it, right? And that might not always be the case. Sometimes people just develop schizophrenia. But if it was triggered by the use of, like, let's say LSD, right, we might say LSD-induced schizophrenia, and that would be your formal diagnosis. And that may or may not go away, which is the scary part. Right? Yeah.
So if somebody says, for example, they're diagnosed with depression and anxiety,
Yeah.
but they use a substance, but it's not necessarily caused by the substance.
Yeah.
What kind of?
Yeah, so they might have both, right? So you could have, let's say somebody has major depression, right? And as a result of having major depression, they drink a lot of alcohol, right? And that might be the way they cope with it, or maybe they just kind of coexist. You could have a diagnosis of major depression and a diagnosis of substance abuse disorder with alcohol. Now, if you develop depression because you used alcohol, then you would be on that bottom one, right? And so sometimes it's tricky. You kind of have to figure out which comes first, which isn't always easy to do. And people who have mental illnesses often abuse substances to help themselves feel better. When you combine drugs together, right, they tend to be even more volatile, right? This is something that is actually very, very dangerous to do. It's a very common practice, but it's very unpredictably dangerous. Synergism is when two things work together to achieve like a greater end. Sometimes we talk about it in a good way, like groups can have synergy where you get a bunch of people together and they can do more than they could on their own. In this case, a synergistic effect is when drugs, multiple drugs, interact with each other to kind of create unpredictable effects, right? Very easy example, a lot of people combine energy drinks and alcohol together, right? Like a Red Bull and vodka, very, very commonly ordered drink, right? That is using a stimulant in the Red Bull and a depressant in vodka, right? They can have very unpredictable effects, very commonly lead to things like heart attacks, because you don't realize how much you're drinking. They mask each other in an unpredictable way. You mentioned alcohol and barbiturates, right? Combining things like Xanax and alcohol together can create a synergistic effect that can be fatal, right? When people combine alcohol with sedatives, they can interact with each other in a way that can lead to some serious, serious problems. And there've been a lot of cases of people, and these are just a couple, right, that I picked, people who've met tragic endings as a result of combining substances together, right? And again, these are just a few. There are so many more, but these individuals, some of them prescription medications, right? Like Michael Jackson, like it was a bunch of prescription medications that interacted with each other poorly. Others, right, it was like recreational drugs and medications, or just recreational drugs. But when you combine drugs together, you know, they can be very, very dangerous. So it's something you have to be very careful of because it can be so unpredictable. I had somebody last year go, who's Michael Jackson, right? Hopefully that's none of you. If you don't know who he is, look him up after class, right? I was all like, oh my gosh, no, wait, I felt like we needed to watch Thriller or something. What's that? I know, but it was completely serious, like blank face, like who's Michael Jackson? I was like, oh, stay after, we're watching Thriller, right? Anyway, just a few people. All right, causes and treatments, and then we'll do a little bit of a case study, kind of bringing it all together. There are a lot of different perspectives on causes and treatments, kind of similar to eating disorders. It's thought like they all kind of interact and build with each other in an unpredictable way. From a sociocultural model or perspective, we see very strong correlations between people who have like low socioeconomic status and substance abuse. So poverty, kind of poor conditions of living, a lot of like correlations with race and ethnicity as well. Not necessarily causes, but things that are strongly correlated, right? And so living in very stressful or poor socioeconomic conditions does have a correlation with substance use. Freud, from his perspective, would say that it's related to the early years. Everything with Freud is related to the early years, right? Like back to mom and dad and like things like that. Very like heterosexual, heteronormative in his approaches. That mom and dad issues, especially the mother, right? He would talk about kind of unmet needs as a child. Like if you were very dependent as a child, he would say that you might become dependent on other things as an adult, like substances, for example. If you're orally fixated, right? If you got stuck in that oral stage where you're sucking your thumb and like learning to talk, you might become a smoker when you grow up, right? So if you smoke and you can't quit, you can blame your parents just a little bit, according to Freud anyway. So Freud's idea is not a lot of support, but they're often talked about, those kind of early childhood correlations between what happens when you're little and what happens when you're older. Behaviorally and cognitively, a lot of conditioning, right? You're super stressed out and you smoke marijuana and feel relaxed. That's rewarding. You're probably going to do it again, right? You can't sleep. And so you take something to help you sleep and you're able to get a good night of sleep. Again, rewarding. And you're probably going to do it again, right? You're nervous around other people. So you drink some alcohol and you feel like you can let go and relax. Again, that's reinforcing. Drugs tend to be exceedingly reinforcing. There's a lot of operant conditioning at play because you use them and you feel good or you feel better, or it masks the issues that caused you to use them. And so it can prompt further use. So there's a lot of like behavioral pieces. Biologically, there are parts of the brain that might make you more vulnerable, right? Some people maybe have a little bit of like a reward deficiency syndrome. Sorry, I've been talking so much this week. We'll see. See if I survive. What was that? Yes. I tend to start and then I can't stop. And then I start crying. And it's so embarrassing. I'll be okay. Maybe not. If not, right? I guess I'll just have to end and go on my cruise now. Just kidding. All right. All right. Hopefully my throat will cooperate. All right. So reward deficiency, like dopamine. Dopamine plays a huge role. And my throat's all jacked up. Dopamine plays a huge role in substance abuse, right? If people don't have enough dopamine, what they do is they use a substance to get that rush of dopamine. It's almost like a deficiency in that reward center of the brain. So you start using it as a way to kind of create that when maybe you didn't have it there in enough of like a concentration already. All right. I'm gonna give you like this so I can take a minute to like start like my eyes starting to water. I'm like, oh, don't cry. You're so sad. So I'm gonna give this to you to give myself a minute. You guys can start reading and then we'll go from there. Like I'm not sick. Whatever my cough. You ever cough at a grocery store and everyone's like, at you like you're like having a fit? All right. So what I'm going to have you do, very similar to the one with the eating disorder last time, is you can get into groups and you only need to turn in one per group. And I just want you to do numbers 1 and 2 for now, because we haven't talked about treatment yet, but that'll give you a minute to stop coughing in a minute. So this is again a true story about a young woman who has a problem with ecstasy. But so what I want you to do is read through this. Oh, thank you. And then you can get into groups and just answer 1 and 2. So number 1, what are some of the symptoms? And there's a ton of them. So see if you can identify a bunch of them. And then number 2, what are some causes or contributors? And then hold off on number 3 for now because we haven't gotten there yet. But go ahead and read through this and then get into a small group and start working on it together. And then we'll talk about it afterward. And I left the symptoms up here on the board, so that might be helpful for you. And again, when you start working on this, you only need to turn in one per group and you can totally do bulleted responses, that's fine. But just do number 1 and number 2.
Oh, she stopped. She saw position stopped eating the.
Okay, so.
So try and find as many of them as you can. There's a lot of symptoms in there that you can identify.
I'm just gonna write it.
Yes,
Yeah. Like I would have called. I'm working on this pretty.
There's some people, and I need to jump out of my skin, my some thoughts, for them, just all that. That's what I'm saying. It has episodes. You could say, let's later. It's been more trouble to.
Like it looks like mine.
Yeah. I can imagine when I was in a trial, I was supposed to be here. There's no idea of thinking I know she is. She had she still it was just like she does. She like yeah. Also moving, she says here because it was by and I was listening to people no idea to completely fit flashing pictures. Yes. Again, she's moving to something in a different life. Yeah. No, is.
So take a few more minutes, See a bunch of you on number 2.
Back on my old friend is these are your almost in language. It's not just in our journals, the mistakes, we are all like getting some grief and not heard. Whether it's from a difficult childhood, broken heart, or insecurity. So I feel like kind of fitting in machine. Maybe not use it. Yeah, it would like maybe
So just like another minute or so, and then we'll talk about it together, just like another minute and a half.
But in social It's fine.
All right, does anyone need more time or is everyone ready? Ready? Okay, so what did you come up with for symptoms? Does anyone want to give me one to start? Yeah.
She uses like the I arrived term, like when she first used the drug.
Okay.
And usually, I don't know, when drug addicts or alcoholics say like that feeling of euphoria that they get,
Yeah.
it's usually
Mhm.
a sign of substance disorder.
Yeah, and I mean, definitely impacting her, right? Like it changed her entire perspective. Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, I'll go all the way back and then I'll come up to you. Yeah. Yeah, right. So you see her not doing the things that she enjoys doing anymore, right? It's taking up all her time. Yeah. Oh, I stole it, right? Yeah.
Like for basis on.
Yeah, right. So she's only like fulfilling like the bare minimum, right? For sure. What else do we see? Yeah. She'd say that she got it for, yeah, right. That's not helping. That's definitely something we could easily add for number two. Yeah. 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 I see her taking more and more. It's affecting her ability to eat and sleep, all sorts of stuff. Yeah. You think so? Like they see a lot of like kind of things coming up for her at the end. Yeah, yeah, and that can be something that like stays or doesn't. Like unfortunately, you kind of have to wait and see. Did you have you had your hand up, right? Yeah, right. So we get some paranoia. We're seeing a lot of effects of the drug. Yeah. Yeah. Hours, yeah, and so you see just how intensely she's using it, that like it's giving all these physical symptoms. Anything else that you have written down? Yeah.
He said that the weekend start on Thursday and Wednesday.
Yeah.
We move up here.
And it's definitely, I mean, it's taking an incredible amount of time, right? You'll go all the way back. Yeah. Yeah, right. Again, chasing that high. Was that your thought as well, or do you have a different one there? Okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of physiological changes, like makes the spans more frustrating.
Yeah, right. Definitely a lot of those effects. I slipped in the time frame. The one thing I changed, I added in 13 months, right? Just so that we could have a perspective of time. Otherwise, I didn't change anything in here. I would also add there's a lot of craving of the drug, like she's thinking about it, she's craving it constantly. Otherwise, all the stuff that you mentioned, right? You can see all of these different symptoms appearing for her. I mean, she has almost all of them, right, going on, and that's not uncommon. How about for the causes or contributors? What do you think? What's going on there? Yeah. Yeah, right. The new environment and the stress of that clearly affected her drastically. Yeah.
There's no one to stop her. So that might.
Yeah. Yeah, and in fact, the people around her aren't helping at all with that, right? Yeah.
It was affected with people.
Yeah, right. So you see a lot of that conditioning, right? It's helping her in that way. Yeah.
She purposely isolated herself from people. Like she says, I wrote down people who drink drugs, so I only stay with people who did.
Yeah, right. Kind of that othering in a way starting to happen. Yeah.
These are access to her boyfriends, but then so she could get as much as she wanted for her.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, right. That friend culture, her boyfriend having it, being able to get it for free. Anything else? There's a couple other things I had written down. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and that's definitely right, that like unsuccessful attempts, you can keep using it despite the fact that things aren't going well for you. Yeah,
There was a part where she mentioned, I just lost it, but, oh, it says we're all broken in,
Yeah.
some way, feeling sad, hurt, and alone. So it's like a way to like fill a void, kind of.
good. And I like that you found that that's something that I underlined, like maybe there were some underlying problems that might have kind of pushed her in that direction. You also could think about the rush that she gets from the drug itself is incredibly rewarding for her, right? She's chasing it and chasing it and chasing it. So just the rush or that feeling that she has when she's on it is very rewarding. And again, that operant conditioning piece is a big part of what people struggle with because it can be so rewarding for them. We'll get to the third part in just a minute. Let's talk about a couple of treatments and then we'll do the third one. So Freud, if we go with Freud's perspective, right, that we think it's like related to childhood in some way, we're going to try and go back to childhood, figure out where it came from, and try and resolve those unmet needs. Again, not really a strong perspective, but it's one that we could look at a little bit. What we see much more are these ones here. The behavioral therapies are very common with substance abuse, right? And so there's something called aversion therapy. And this is the idea that you are like pairing the drug with something undesirable so that the drug becomes aversive to you rather than pleasurable. You're trying to recondition your response to the drug by making it unpleasant. So maybe you take a drug that makes you throw up when you drink, right? So the second you drink alcohol, you vomit and you feel sick to your stomach, right? Now, what's the easy solution to that? Right, if that's your course of treatment, what's the easy solution if you don't want to get sick? Stop drinking is the goal, but you just don't take the drug, right? Like, and that's something that you see a lot with this type of therapy is like, oh, if I take this drug, it makes me sick. So I'm just not going to take the drug because I want to drink today. But the idea here is that you're trying to pair it with something unpleasant, right? And parents will sometimes do this. This is such an old tactic, like very common in like the 80s and previously. Where like, I'm going to have my child like smoke an entire pack of cigarettes till they get sick so they never want to smoke, right? Or I'm going to have my child drink way too much so that they get sick from it and they never want to drink. Thankfully, that's not a very common technique anymore, but in my generation, like growing up, it was so common, right? Like my cousin's parents made her drink an entire bottle of wine so she would get sick and never want to drink. My cousin became a raging alcoholic. I would say they failed on that one, right? So that's not a very successful strategy, but it was so common in like the 80s and previous to that. We've learned a lot since then. It doesn't tend to have that effect. But that's the idea here is we make it aversive or unpleasant to try and stop you. From a cognitive behavioral perspective, we do a lot of like tracking your behavior, journaling in a way. Like, when did you crave the drug? When did you use the drug? Who were you around? How did you feel before? How did you feel after? Right? Looking for triggers, looking for times of day, trying to kind of identify behavioral pieces and then learn to identify those triggers so we can try and change them. It's a very common way to combine behavioral and cognitive stuff together to try and track and journal with the hopes of better understanding. And then ideally, like learning how to avoid situations that might trigger you to want to use those substances. Maybe there's certain people, like with our person here, right? Certain people that are triggering her. So we need you to stay away from those people if you want to ever like stop using this substance. So these are very, very common things up here, something behaviorally to make it unpleasant, and then like tracking your behaviors and your cravings to try and turn them around. We can also do some biological stuff. Very common, if people are abusing substances, we have to detox them. Right? You have to get off of the substance, and this can be difficult to do. Some substances are much harder than others. And so sometimes what we do is you'll actually have to take another drug to get off of a drug. Very common with heroin, for example. If people are severely addicted to heroin, they might go on methadone as a way to transition off of heroin, right? Methadone would be prescribed by a doctor, right? It's less intense, less addictive. But it's so controversial, people then can become dependent on the methadone, right? Or you take like something like a nicotine like gum or a nicotine patch to stop smoking, and then you become dependent on that, right? It's really common that people become dependent on the drug that they're trying to use to get off of the other drug. So it's not the best strategy, but in severe cases, especially if it needs to be medically monitored, this is something that we might consider. But detoxing someone is a huge practice with drug treatment, but you have to get it out of their system. And sometimes this requires hospitalization or being like in an inpatient facility to have this monitored, because it can be very severe, as we were talking about earlier, depending on the drug. Uh-huh.
But there's like no issue there amount.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's not uncommon, sadly, right? You end up just adding another substance or a new problem to replace the old one. Yeah.
Neighbors who were good friends with them, but her husband has been on methadone for years.
Yeah.
And I had to drive him to detox to try to get him off the methadone, and it was unsuccessful because they couldn't. He had been so dependent on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
ultimately, it's in his bones at that point that they couldn't get him off of that.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, and that again, that happens, and specifically with methadone, very, very controversial for that reason, right? And it's safer in a way, like you're getting the needles and you're getting the drug from a doctor, so you're not out there like purchasing it illegally. But it still oftentimes leads to some serious issues. And again, detox can be very, very difficult to do. A lot of movies highlighting that struggle and that difficulty, something that comes up repeatedly. One more thing that we could add, there's a lot of like sociocultural therapies, like AA or NA and all of those kind of groups. They're remember, they're kind of like those self-help groups rather than group therapy, where people are meeting with others and going through step programs to try and get off of a substance, whether it's alcohol or a drug, a different drug, so NA or AA. Those are very, very common, right? Where you have a sponsor and you have somebody who's kind of guiding you and helping you because they are a little bit farther along their journey. Or maybe even on a more severe level, being hospitalized, right? Not uncommon for people to go to like a residential treatment center or like a detox substance abuse facility. We have a lot of those here in Hollywood because of all the like actors and actresses that struggle with this. We have a ton of them in like Los Angeles area, but they are very commonly used for a short period of time to help you detox, to help you kind of get back on the right track, and then transition back into your normal life. And then just trying to prevent these things. There's a lot of preventative efforts. Right? My kids always have Red Ribbon Week, you know, like at their school, right? Trying to teach about substances. They shamed me last year. They had Red Ribbon Week, and I was drinking a cup of coffee. They're like, "You're using drugs." And I was all like, "Well, okay, let's have a conversation about that. Like, it's not hard drugs, people. It's caffeine." And they're like, my 8-year-old's all, "That's a drug. You're on drugs." I'm telling my teacher. Don't tell your teacher. I'm like, your teacher drinks coffee too. Trust me, I know. We bought them a gift card for Christmas, right? Like, so I mean, but trying to like raise awareness with kids to start learning these things early. But that's tricky too. I don't know if any of you have had scare tactics with drugs, but if people tell you as a kid that all drugs are bad, they're going to ruin your life, they're going to be awful, it's like bad, right? And then you use a substance and you feel good and nothing bad happens. Everything that they've taught you just gets tossed out the window, right? So there needs to be a little bit of a balance there of like, here are the dangers, but this is why maybe people use them. And that's something that's more common now rather than like the old scare tactics, trying to do a little bit of that, but also education about the harmful effects rather than like just saying they're just bad, period. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was part of the reason. It's been revamped quite a bit, right? Like over time, as we've learned more and we've learned more successful ways. But yeah, DARE, that old program was very much that way, right? Use drugs, you're going to die. It's going to ruin your life. You know, everything will go downhill. And that can be the case, but sometimes it's not, right? There are a lot of people who use drugs and they manage and they get through life and they're okay. And so those scare tactics don't always tend to work. Right? Have to have a balance. So back to our young woman here with the ecstasy struggle. Take just like a couple of minutes, like 2-3 minutes with your group. What are some things we can do to help her? Now she got some treatments, you can think about that, or you can add to that, but take like 2-3 minutes. What are some things we could do for her?
She was always incredible. But I feel something like because so I think if she gets started like really fun things that's being maybe overcome that. But I feel like even like in a residential children, maybe the work she does like that like social traits or does like just something I treat them. Yeah, that one too, right? The behavioral self-control. Yeah. Yeah. So just wait. Yeah. That show has some surprising me. Right, everyone ready? Right, so what do we? No, obviously you got some help in here, but a little bit mixed in that reaction. But what do you think? Yeah.
Detox,
Yes.
and then maybe some sort of inpatient treatment.
Okay. Yeah. Getting her off of it. Really important, right? Like detoxing, maybe inpatient treatment. Yeah.
I agree with the detoxing, but then after that, I think that BSCT and exertion therapy helps, and then when she goes off to live on her own again.
Yeah.
Whether it's back in New York or somewhere else, she can avoid further substance abuse.
Yeah. And I really think like looking at those triggers, it's going to be very obvious what they are, right? And I think that could be really helpful for her. Yeah.
She was very, from the beginning, motivated by the group.
Yeah.
It was very easygoing and susceptible to peer pressure, so I think group therapy would be perfect for her. And you be surrounded by people who are hating on her, then
Yeah.
you will begin to go along with the group.
I like that, right? Like she definitely kind of seems to be very susceptible. And that might be really helpful for her. It's a different group culture, right? I like that. That's a great suggestion. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, right. Really kind of helping her to detox and then having that supportive environment. Did you have another thought?
Would be
Right.
to sober living,
Mhm.
would help her like re reshape her.
Yeah.
New lifestyle. and
Yeah.
Teach her how to live
Mhm.
with other people that are also doing and be sober. Still do all the things she wants to.
Yeah, I like that, right? And I think that she might need some long-term like help and therapy, right? We talked about maybe having some broken like underlying issues, right? So going back and looking at those might be helpful. Like what is underlying all of this that maybe made her more susceptible? And working on that through therapy, we can consider medication if she's struggling with depression or other things. But the suggestions you had are great ones. It's usually like a multi-pronged effort, right? Like trying to look at different areas. So what we can do is like a combined approach. Yeah.
Shouldn't we do, like, one balance?
Uh-huh.
Is that like in a real life situation, do people have to take them like permanently for life?
It depends. So sometimes you end up taking them for like a short period of time and your body kind of levels itself out and you're okay. Other people end up taking them forever and it never goes away. And it really is kind of all over the board. It depends on how much you used for how long, how bad the imbalances are. So it could be a short term, like, 6 months to a year, and then everything kind of levels out and she could try going off of it. Or it could be that she needs it for a long time or even forever. And that's the scary thing about substances is you just don't know how you're going to respond to them. Right. And I think that's the thing that's always kind of given me healthy fears. You don't know what the outcome is going to be, right? Or how long you're going to be dealing with that outcome. For some, it's short, and for others, it's a lifelong change. So that is the end of chapter 10. We got through everything, which is fantastic. Again, remember, after today, you can email me and I'll be able to respond to you all the way through Saturday. But then next week, remember the exam's on Monday. You'll have an assignment on Wednesday. I hope those go smoothly. If you run into issues, please feel free to reach out, but don't worry if you don't hear back from me right away. Before you go today, make sure I get your paper with your names on it so I can give you credit if you want to just bring it up on your way out. Have a wonderful 2 weeks. I'll see you much fatter and tanner, hopefully, when I see you in 2 weeks. All right, have a wonderful spring break, everyone. I'll see you in a bit. Okay, great. Thank you.